Oh, he's back.
That worked. That was weird. My internet crapped out and I had to completely reboot everything.
Yeah, me and Lena were laughing. We were like, what just happened?
That was a great moment.
So, I'm thinking that was a great moment. The students are just fine by themselves. I can duck in and out of these meetings and you guys are going to be golden. Where did you lose me? What was the last thing you heard?
You said, I'm afraid I don't understand. And it said, oh, and then something in another language I can't pronounce.
Okay, so that was when I was butchering French and trying to read in French.
Yeah.
So great. I can skip that part and I won't have it in the recording. But Yossarian was trying to ask him in French to make it easier. And the corporal said, I don't speak French. And Yossarian said, neither do I.
So they were just saying random gibberish?
Well, kind of. But basically when the corporal played dumb in English, Yossarian switched languages to make it easier. And then the next sentence kind of gives it away. He says, Yossarian was ready to pursue him through all the words in the world, to wring the knowledge from him if he could. But Clevenger intervened, pale, thin, and laboring for breath, a humid coating of tears already glistening in his undernourished eyes. Group headquarters was alarmed, for there was no telling what people might find out once they felt free to ask whatever questions they wanted to. God, that sounds like school. Colonel Cathcart sent Colonel Corn to stop it, and Colonel Corn succeeded with a rule governing the asking of questions. Colonel Corn's rule was a stroke of genius. Colonel Corn, as explained in his report to Colonel Cathcart, under Colonel Corn's rule, the only, by the way, do you get it? A kernel of corn? Colonel Corn?
Oh.
Under Colonel Corn's rule, the only people permitted to ask questions were those who never did. This is another catch-22. Soon, the only people attending were those who never asked questions, and the sessions were discontinued altogether, since Clevenger, the corporal, and Colonel Corn agreed that it was neither possible nor necessary to educate people who never questioned anything. That might be my favorite line that we've read together this year. Colonel Cathcart and Lieutenant Colonel Corn lived and worked in the group headquarters building, as did all the members of the headquarters staff, with the exception of the chaplain. The group headquarters building was an enormous, windy, antiquated structure built of powdery red stone and banging plumbing. Behind the building was the modern skeet shooting range that had been constructed by Colonel Cathcart for the exclusive recreation of the officers at group, and at which every officer and enlisted man on combat status now, thanks to General Dreedel, had to spend a minimum of 8 hours a month. Yossarian shot skeet but never hit any. Appleby shot skeet and never missed. Yossarian was as bad at shooting skeet as he was at gambling. He could never win money gambling either. Even when he cheated, he couldn't win because the people he cheated against were always better at cheating too. These were two disappointments to which he had resigned himself. He would never be a skeet shooter, and he would never make money. It takes brains not to make money, Colonel Cargill wrote in one of the homiletic memoranda he regularly prepared for circulation over General Peckham's signature. Any fool can make money these days, and most of them do. But what about the people with talent and brains? Name, for example, one poet who makes money. T.S. Eliot, ex-PFC Wintergreen said in his mail sorting cubicle at 27th Air Force Headquarters and slammed down the telephone without identifying himself. Colonel Cargill in Rome was perplexed. Who was it? Asked General Peckham. I don't know, Colonel Cargill replied. What did he want? I don't know. Well, what did he say? T.S. Eliot, Colonel Cargill informed him. What's that? T.S. Eliot, Colonel Cargill repeated. Just T.S.? Yes, sir. That's all he said. Just T.S. Eliot. I wonder what it means, General Peckham reflected. Colonel Cargill wondered too. T.S. Eliot, General Peckham mused. T.S. Eliot. Colonel Cargill echoed with the same funereal puzzlement. General Peckham roused himself after a moment with an anxious and benignant smile. His expression was shrewd and sophisticated. His eyes gleamed maliciously. Have someone get me General Dreedel, he requested Colonel Cargill. Don't let him know who's calling. Colonel Cargill handed him the phone. T.S. Eliot, General Peckham said, and hung up. Who was it? Asked Colonel Mudis. General Dreedel in Corsica did not reply. Colonel Mudis was General Dreedel's son-in-law, and General Dreedel, at the insistence of his wife and against his own better judgment, had taken him into the military business. General Dreedel gazed at Colonel Mudis with level hatred. He detested the very sight of his son-in-law, who was his aide and therefore in constant attendance upon him. He had opposed his daughter's marriage to Colonel Mudis because he disliked attending weddings. Wearing a menacing and preoccupied scowl, General Dreedel moved to the full-length mirror in his office and stared at his stocky reflection. He had a grizzled, broad-bowed head with iron-gray tufts over his eyes and a blunt and belligerent jaw. He brooded in ponderous speculation over the cryptic message he had just received. Slowly, his face softened with an idea, and he curled his lips with wicked pleasure. "Get Peckham," he told Colonel Mudis. "Don't let the bastard know who's calling." "Who was it?" asked Colonel Cargill back in Rome. "The same person," General Peckham replied with a definite trace of alarm. "Now he's after me." "What did he want?" "I don't know." "What did he say?" "The same thing." "T.S. Eliot?" "Yes, T.S. Eliot. That's all he said." General Peckham had a hopeful thought. "Perhaps it's a new code or something, like the colors of the day." So you've got all these big military executive types crank calling each other like 14-year-olds. "Why don't you have someone check with communications and see if it's a new code or something?" Communications answered that T.S. Eliot was not a new code. Colonel Cargill had the next idea. "Maybe I ought to phone 27th Air Force headquarters and see if they know anything about it. They have a clerk up there named Wintergreen I'm pretty close to. He's the one who tipped me off that our prose was too prolix." XPFC Wintergreen told Colonel Cargill that there was no record at 27th Air Force headquarters of a T.S. Eliot. "How's our prose these days?" Colonel Cargill decided to inquire. "It's much better now, isn't it?" "It's still too prolix." "It wouldn't surprise me if General Dreedel were behind the whole thing. Remember what he did at that skeet shooting range?" General Dreedel had thrown open Colonel Cathcart's private skeet shooting range to every officer and enlisted man in the group on combat duty. General Dreedel wanted his men to spend as much time on the skeet shooting range as the facilities and their flight schedule would allow. Now, before I go on, have you ever heard the name T.S. Eliot?
Isn't he a poet?
Mm-hmm. And one of my absolute favorite poems that I would have made time for if we were in class is called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And in fact, you know what I think I'll do? I'll put it up on the blog and ask people to have a look at it before our Zoom call tomorrow. And we'll take a quick detour from Catch 22 and we'll have a look at the poem because it's from around the same time period. And T.S. Eliot was very famous. In fact, have you heard of the play Cats,
Yeah.
the musical? So
Yeah.
that was based on a poem called Cats by T.S. Eliot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's why I have a job. "I think you're crazy," was the way Clevenger had responded to Dunbar's discovery. "Who wants to know?" Dunbar answered. "I mean it," Clevenger insisted. "Who cares?" Dunbar answered. "I really do. I'll even go so far as to concede that life seems longer, is longer, is longer? All right, is longer if it's filled with periods of boredom and discomfort." Here's that theme again. "Guess how fast," Dunbar said suddenly. "Huh?" "They go," Dunbar explained. "Who?" "Years." "Years?" "Years," said Dunbar. "Years, years, years." "Clevenger, why don't you let Dunbar alone?" Yossarian broke in. "Don't you realize the toll this is taking?" "It's all right," said Dunbar magnanimously. "I have some decades to spare." Meaning, Yossarian knew that Dunbar was doing something he enjoyed and was making his life and time go by faster. "Do you know how long a year takes when it's going away?" "And you shut up also," Yossarian told Orr, who had begun to snigger. "I was just thinking about that girl," Orr said. "That girl in Sicily. The girl in Sicily with the bald head." "You'd better shut up," Yossarian warned him. "It's your fault," Dunbar said to Yossarian. "Why don't you let him snigger if he wants to? It's better than having him talking." "All right, go ahead and snigger if you want to." "Do you know how long a year takes when it's going away?" Dunbar repeated to Clevenger. "This long," he snapped his fingers. "A second ago you were stepping into college with your lungs full of fresh air. Today you're an old man." "Old?" asked Clevenger with surprise. "What are you talking about?" "Old. I'm not old. You're inches away from death every time you get on a mission. How much older can you be at your age? A half minute before that, you were stepping into high school, and an unhooked brassiere was as close as you ever hoped to get to paradise. Only a fifth of a second before that, you were a small kid with a 10-week summer vacation that lasted 100,000 years and still ended too soon. Zip. They go by rocketing by so fast. How the hell else are you ever going to slow time down?" Dunbar was almost angry when he finished. "Well, maybe it is true," Clevenger conceded unwillingly in a subdued tone. "Maybe a long life does have to be filled with many unpleasant conditions, if it's the scene long. But in that event, who wants one? I do, Dunbar told him. Why? Clevenger asked. What else is there? And that brings us to part 5 of chapter 1. So I'll pause there. Any questions or feedback on the reading today?
Exactly how many characters are in this book?
It seems like about 4,000, aren't there?
Yeah.
There's not actually that many, but we're meeting them all at once. And because of the pace of the dialogue, like in that scene, Dunbar's talking to Clevenger. Yossarian interrupts. While Yossarian interrupts, Orr starts cracking up on the side, so Yossarian starts talking to Orr. So even though there are only 4 people in the mix, they're all talking amongst, kind of like you would be in the quad at break, right?
Yeah.
But because we're meeting all of them for the first time, and because it's on the page instead of right in front of us that we can see, it's a little tougher to take stock of all at once. And the same thing with the crank calling round. Each one of those characters was somebody different.
Yeah, that was funny. I was like, what are they doing?
Right. Immaturity 101. You know what we might do, Lena, to help? Maybe we can look online and see if there's a character map, or we can draw one of our own so that we can sort of track who's talking to whom. Would that help?
That could work.
Okay. I'll take a stab at it and put something up on the blog. And if you find something better, go ahead and comment or put something up too.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for today, y'all? Well, I know that the days are running together and people are getting, we have these kind of cycles, and I heard it in both of you today. So hang in there, do the best you can with what you got. And if you need anything at all, reach out. Deanna, did you say your physics exam was tomorrow?
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay. Well, hang in there with your preparation. And if you need anything along the way, let me know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it. See you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.